Americans should work past 65 to avoid retirement crisis, says BlackRock CEO. Let's first look at the article, then I'll go over it, I'll discuss it, tell you what I think, then we'll look at the comments, because I don't think people are too happy about this. BlackRock CEO Larry Fink caused a stir when he encouraged Americans to keep working past age 65. The billionaire, who chairs the world's largest asset manager, kicked off his 2024 letter to shareholders by telling his readers it is time to rethink retirement. What's the solution here? Fink asked in the letter. No one should have to work longer than they want to. But I do think it's a bit crazy that our anchor idea for the right retirement age, 65 years old, originates from the time of the Ottoman Empire. He's not alone in thinking that the current retirement age is a bit crazy. Another proponent of raising the retirement age, South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, of course, said Congress should require people to work longer before collecting retirement benefits. The demographics don't lie, he wrote in his annual letter. It's not just that people are retiring in America, it's also that their retirements are increasing in length. Oh no, someone must put an end to this. In other words, a lot more Americans are living longer. Yeah, I mean, is this what they're afraid of? Like, come on. This increase, Fink claimed, is already having a massive impact on the country's retirement system, specifically the nation's Social Security. At some point, these funds could dry up entirely, and sooner than you think. Fink doubled down on his belief in last year's shareholder letter, writing, "The problem will only get harder and nastier as the older Gen Xers start to retire. They're the first generation primarily dependent on 401ks, and the 401k trend is growing with millennial and Gen Zs." Isn't it funny how he calls it a 401k trend, like it's the new thing to do? His suggestion? Shifting a portion of the funds into a diversified mix of stocks and bonds rather than relying solely on U.S. Treasury bonds. However, there are some, like labor economist Teresa Ghilarducci, a renowned thought leader on U.S. retirement issues. You know, I'm kind of like a thought leader as well, right? Anyway, and then down here she says, not everyone is living longer. The only people that are living longer are the people with good health care and had jobs that sort of enhanced their health. Then she added, there are some parts of the economy of our America where actually the longevity is going down. So you get the point. Let's get into it. My first gripe with this is he calls the 401k a trend. The 401k trend, as if it's like some optional cool thing that just hit the block. You know, the only reason people are a part of this 401k trend today is because companies no longer offer a pension. When pensions were made obsolete and when the 401k was created, companies benefited massively. I'll put up some statistics here on how they benefit. You can pause and read it if you want. But for time's sake, companies benefit heavily from people having 401ks. Investment managers, they benefit heavily off of people having 401ks. Larry Fink and BlackRock, they benefit heavily off of people having 401ks. So if he wants to take your Social Security fund or the government Social Security fund and turn it into essentially a 401k type account where, you know, it's thrown into index funds and it's going up as the market goes up, he would benefit heavily from that. The other thing is, like, the way this is framed, it's like, well, you know, we should take the existing Social Security fund and we should, you know, cut it into pieces. It's the same thing they did with the pensions. Instead of just letting you keep your pension and then maybe you can branch off and get a 401k, they took away your pension and then they gave you the 401k. A lot of times you're enrolled into it automatically, even if it's just 1%. And the 401k is not a bad idea at all, but it's one of those things where it's like, well, we could do this a better way. My other issue with this is it's framed in a way to where they want to sort of push the retirement age up in a legal sense or in a policy sense. My counter argument to that is you kind of don't need to, because the cost of living is getting so ridiculous that people are naturally retiring much older because they're forced to continue working. I'll throw a stat up on the screen of the cost of living and how it's going up, but people are already working longer than they need to. And the only people that are retiring earlier are people, like the article said, they blow their knee out, they got a very physical job, they injure their back, and they can't work for medical reasons. So the data is there's a bias in the data that the people that are getting injured young and can't work anymore is sort of bringing that number down. The realistic number is already probably where Larry Fink wants to be, but they just want to make it policy and law for their own benefit. And besides, what retirement is has changed as well. You know, back in the day, retirement was like you live on the beach, you go travel the world, you do all these things that you couldn't do when you were younger because you were working, and then you're also still young enough to actually enjoy it. So, you know, you could be a 50-year-old or 60-year-old, but you can still move and get out there and your job wasn't as physical as it is now, so you don't have those injuries to sort of screw you up and prevent you from, going out and enjoying that sort of stage of retirement. Nowadays, retirement for the most part is people, they quit their full-time job and they just go to a part-time job. So that also skews the numbers of employment, because now you have old people that should technically be out of the job market that are still working. So now you see how all of these things and these band-aid solutions actually create worse conditions for us as workers in the future, because retirement age is going up on paper, but the reality is it's much higher than it already is listed as, because like the article says, people are getting injured pretty young and unable to work. And then the job numbers come in, and the job numbers look fine on paper, but that's only because old people who should be retired are still working part-time or full-time jobs. And this is especially true for like Gen Z and Gen X. Like once we get older as people, how's it going to look? What are the conditions going to be? You're going to have your politicians pushing for 100-year retirement. Oh, Americans are living longer. Oh no, Yeah, so that's my opinion. That's my take on it. It's the usual rhetoric we see from older politicians and people like Larry, who have billions of dollars, who just want you working longer. Let's go look at the comments, though, because you already know those are going to be great. This guy here says, and what of those waiting to get a job? This is part of the employment problem in this country. Too many people not retiring for whatever reason and taking up space. Yeah, and this is exactly what I was saying earlier. It creates a negative sort of loop where you get stuck in it, and you have old people that don't want to leave the job market because they can't, and young people that want to get in and they can't. So that does not solve the problem. If anything, we should be reducing the retirement age to keep people healthy, have them live longer, and then free up jobs for the younger people. And honestly, when you think about it from like a production standpoint, I would argue that those young people that are hungry to start working and make money, they'd be a lot more efficient anyway than those old people. Jim says, easy to work in your 70s when you commute vehicles a private jet. This guy says, I retired at 66, not because I wanted to, but because my American company sent my customer service job to Mexico. Yeah, that's the other thing. All the numbers of this retirement early crap are all, they're not accurate. So the age that people are retiring in America is much older. It's already at where Larry Fink wants it. And then Gordy here says, ain't that something? Work until 70 and die before you can collect. And that's the thing, too. Maybe that's their goal. Maybe they want you to work and then to the point where you can't even collect it. Sort of carrot on the stick. You'll never reach it. But then the money goes back into the market, and then the generational wealth sort of cycle continues for them and their people. Anyway, that's my take on it. That's what I think. I'll go ahead and close this out. Go ahead and comment, like the video, share it, subscribe, do all that stuff. See ya.